Take a deep breath. Deep conversations are starting.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of Deep Conversations with Breath Hub. And I'm with an amazing lady, Mickey. And as I said before, I don't like introducing people because when people introduce me, it's kind of like they miss things out. And it's kind of like, that's not really me. I like introducing myself. So I'd like you to introduce yourself and then we will dive deep into a nice conversation.
Okay, fine. Hi, I'm Mickey. I live in London, but I'm from Glasgow. And I'm a yoga teacher, but if I even say so myself, I'm more than a yoga teacher. I run a health and well-being business, and that business really I started a year ago to encourage and inspire everyone, and I really do mean everyone, to live better lives. And that life for me really starts with movement, hence the yoga beginning with your practice, because for me, we're designed to move. We're not designed to sit around and, freeze up. We're designed to get out there and have fun. And that can start through movement. And when you start moving around, the rest of it's much easier.
Yeah, and that's why you look so gorgeous.
Absolutely, darling.
Yeah, you
Absolutely.
look gorgeous. Yeah, I want to dive deep.
Okay.
Because I don't like chit-chat. What was that thing again?
Rubbish patter. When you're in Glasgow, chit-chat is called patter. It doesn't really have a spelling, but anyone who's listening to this is Scottish or knows Scottish people will realise that patter is a very Glaswegian expression, and it just does mean like an exchange, really. Maybe it's kind of trashy chit-chat, but it's rubbish patter in Glasgow. But we're not going to talk rubbish patter. Yeah. We're going to go bigger than that. We're going to go big and meaningful.
How does it go? Is it like, hey, yeah, hoi,
rubbish patter? In Glasgow, it's like, you all right? Aye. How are you? No bad. What's happening? That's rubbish patter.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love how it sounds, no matter what. No matter what.
Yeah, if you went up to Glasgow, you wouldn't be able to understand one word of that. I'm translating that right now. That is a translation.
Oh, that's a translation.
When if you're in Glasgow, it sounds a bit more like...
Yeah. I think it's like that in most parts of the world, the language changes according to where you are.
It's a wonderful thing about language, isn't it? And accents. I love accents.
Me too.
I love listening to the sing-song about, like when I was saying earlier, people from the East Coast in Scotland, to us Glaswegians, we're West Coast, we call them chuchters. And there is not really a translation for what that means. It's just an expression. And anyone out there who's listening who is a chuchter will know what that means.
I love it. Yeah, so let's come back to the deep conversation. Yeah. And a week ago, we literally had a very deep conversation with you because you are transforming into another being in your lifetime. And it was, for me, it was great watching that happen.
Yeah.
It's just, great how you figured it all out and how, it's just amazing, your whole consciousness. And would you like to just...
Yeah, part of that massive transformation has been really through my pranic healing. I'm a pranic healer now myself, but it's also healed myself and helped me really develop my practice, not only the practice, my personal practice, but the practice that I now share, because it's more than teaching, it's sharing. And it's just diving deeper into the energy world, I suppose you could call it. Maybe that's just a bit of a chit-chat expression because it's much more deeper than that. And it really is another way of being.
Yeah, I kind of like want to even call it the real world. It can sound a bit weird for people, or sometimes I know it sounds a bit woo-woo for people. That's why I usually explain it as we are human beings and we have the human self and the being self. And we women are very much connected with that being self. It's kind of like we can, if we allow ourselves to go deep within. We can literally tap into what is beyond this three-dimensional world. And I think you are someone who did tap into that world.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in my own journey, because, you know, we can only really use ourselves as a barometer because that's really the experience that we're living. I really have now a really strong understanding of who I am. You know, I remember many, many years ago, and I'm talking over 20 years ago, I met someone actually in Bali. That makes me sound really fabulous and international, but in Bali called Andrew Cohen. And I actually got a book from him then which was titled, it's a small book, Who Am I and How Shall I Live? And really that, when I met Andrew Cohen, was the beginning of me really looking at myself, but the real self, not the thoughts, the emotions, the words, the mind, but the soul,
Yeah,
spiritual
I think those
self.
two questions are the most important questions ever in life. Who am I and how should I live? Because if you are at a stage in life where you can ask those two questions, that means you are ready to move beyond the conditioning. Like in the first episode, we were talking with Zaz, like how conditioned people are. And people, I mean, I watch people like, people think like, let's get married and then have a kid and then have a house and have a car. It's kind of like we are all conditioned to live life in a certain way. But we're all individuals. We have our own way of living, and it's like, that's why I usually ask people who I coach or mentor, like, why do you want it? Like, why? Like, what's your thing? Like, what do you want? Maybe you don't need a house. Maybe you'll just travel the world for the rest of your life. You know, it's like, I think really asking yourself, who am I? And how should I live my life? Like, what's my way of living life? I think that's just the first step we take into meeting with our true selves, because our true self, it doesn't have conditioning, it doesn't have rules, it doesn't have a structure. It just wants to be the way she is, and do whatever the flippin' thing she wants.
Because really it's heartbreaking to a certain extent that you see that so many people are living in that ring of fear, that they're really afraid. And it's not just about fear like, oh, I'm scared that I'm going to trip over and break my ankle. It's a really, really deep, it's right down in their chakras, in their energy centers. Those energy centers are blocked, and they're blocked by this dark energy. You know, if anyone who's listening to this knows about chakras and the spinning wheels of chakras, they will understand that when you live in a world of fear, and what sits with fear is like this resentment and anger and anxiety and apprehensions, all the ailments of what we call modern living. But why are we living like that? What is this? What is this nonsense? And but it's like it's just all around us. And again, looking at myself and how I have overcome that, how I've transcended, is really through my spiritual practice. And again, like you're saying at the beginning, when you say to people spiritual practice, they sort of think that it's some sort of like, either they think it's some sort of cult or something, or they think that it's something that's a bit seen to be as woo, seen to be as sort of ridiculed. But it's the fear that ridicules the spiritual practice. It's the conditioning that ridicules it. I come from a very Catholic background, and my mother, I've been to church a couple of times with my mum just because of personal circumstances. And I really, really have came to see, after not being in a church for probably about 20 years, except for weddings and stuff, I've seen her spiritual side within this church, and that people look at places like churches as if there's something bad about them, as if there's some sort of evil lurking there. But there isn't. These are sacred places. And, you know, whether it's a Christian church or a mosque or whatever your religion is, that religion can really inspire a spiritual practice in itself.
Exactly.
You know, it's a traditional spiritual practice. And I see now as I've got older that there are many things that have been lost through the breakdown of these religious communities.
Yeah, I agree.
And what's been lost is the sense of spirit, the place where the spiritual self can live. And I feel that now that these places have become out of fashion, that people are becoming more lost because they don't know where to go. And that is being replaced now, to a certain extent, by practices
with
like
New Age.
we're doing, the yoga, the meditation. That's why these things are being sucked up by people, because they want it. They feel
lost.
The lost, absolutely, that there's something missing. Because let's face it, when you see a dead animal or a dead person lying, when my dog died, it was one of the first real, very close experiences that I've had with death, and quite recently. And I saw his body after he was dead, and I put my hand on it, and I thought, and even though the body was warm, the spirit had gone, and it was very clear to me that it was gone. It had transcended. And that's when your brain is able to make sense of this idea of energy. It's almost like it's really difficult to understand it unless you have a physical experience of it. That's why I'm talking about the dog, where you actually see it with your own eyes and go, oh, now I realise that
Something
there is a
isn't
spirit there, because all that's lying on the table is bones and muscles and organs, and that's all it is. Because the dog, the spirit, my pet, has transcended.
Yeah.
He's now raised up. You know, his spirit is gone. And it's the same if you see...
And he's inside the eternal life energy.
Yeah, and it's the same when you see a dead person. Not that we're having a really morbid conversation, but it is a deep conversation. And you see the body there, you go, oh, that doesn't look like him. It doesn't look like him because it's just a body.
Yeah, it's just bones.
It's
and
just
muscles,
the
and
physical
that's it.
remnants of the spirit of that great person that was there.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you're talking about when you say, who am I?
Yeah,
you know?
And death is a sacred process.
Yeah.
And, you know, we going again with fear, all this fear, and there's a lot of it going on right now, but, you know, it's a sacred journey in itself. It really is a sacred journey to see that someone to die and then to take that journey over to the other side. It's a very, very spiritual experience. It's a very spiritual experience.
Yeah, I remember I told you already about this. Like when I was very small, I think when I was a teenager, I had this very deep connection with the whole divine. And I think children and teenagers, they have a deep connection with the divine they can't explain. But then it's kind of like as we grow up, because we don't talk about these topics, we kind of like shut up. But once I speak about these, I hear that everybody was feeling almost the same. Like each and every person I ever meet came to a period in their lifetime where they looked at their hands and they were like, "What's this? You know, what's really this? Like, what's the meaning of this? Or what's this? Or who am I? Am I this? Or what am I? Or am I my mind? Or am I?" You know, it's like I see...
That's kind of when the conditioning starts, the systematic conditioning.
It's like
when you become that adolescent and your body is changing.
Yeah.
But your mind is changing as well, you know. And then that's when, now that you mention that, it's really critical. That's when the deep conditioning starts, the systematic conditioning, the fear, the young girl.
The living.
Yeah.
I call it like living according to a book,
Yeah.
as if there was a book called, this is the way you should live. That's why it's like, how shall I live is the deepest question we can ask to ourselves, because there is no book of life. It's not, there is no way of living. And I hear all these people talking about, you should wake up at this, you should do that. And no, it's like, this is my life. And this, it's just, I live my life the way I want to live it. And once you get there, once you can do that, it's like, be brave enough. And that's bravery, because there is too much fear. And that fear, I think, comes with, being taught. I think it's in all religions and all the traditions and all around the world, we grew up in that kind of like there is a book of this is wrong, this is right, and you should do this. And like kind of, I even find myself while I was working with my mind, like I had these ideas of a good mother. And then the more I meditated and the more I did breath work, I came up to a place where I was like, there is no good mother, I am the best mother for my 2 daughters because they chose me as a mother. It's like with all my ups and downs and goods and bads and, all the shitty stuff I do or all the beautiful stuff I do, I am their mom and I'm the best mom for them.
Yeah,
it's like there is no, because I found all these judgments. I mean, I'm sure, many people who are working with their minds now or meditating, who are listening to this podcast have been through that. It's like once you dive into the mind, you realize, all the judgments and all the conditioning. Like I had a lot of conditioning around being a mother, like I should have done this, I should have done that, or, like kind of as if there is a book of best way of,
it's nonsense.
No, it's just, I am I am that I am. And
it's
and
very,
that's the fear. That's
it is.
that. The fear is kind of like coming from the tradition of, people literally, most people think there is the best way of living, or like there is a, right and wrong in life, where there is no right and there is no wrong and there is no such thing.
But I think, and it's true about this book of living and these sort of like rules. But the problem is, I mean, how? Well, I guess when you're in the sort of industry that we're in, you're on a practical sense, like I said in the beginning, I introduced myself, my life's work is to really encourage and inspire other people to live, because having, being a mother myself, and I remember when my first son was born, and that was in 95, I nearly forgot there, 95, and I was very... oh God, I was such a little rule breaker. I was like, right, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. We're not having any vaccinations. We're all vegans. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. And I didn't even use no disposable nappies, no nothing. I washed all these nappies every day. I did this. There was no sugar. There was no this, because I have been a macrobiotic since a long, long time ago, since I've been about 22. And so I brought that, that whole sort of thing, health and well-being, into, and I remember someone saying to me, but how will you do that? How will you do it? As if it was some sort of impossible task. But I was like, I was determined to just... you don't need to follow these rules. The rule book. This is what you do when you're a mum. You get all these plastic nappies out and put them in a... What? What is this nonsense?
No, I do it my way.
Yeah, it's doing it your way, and it's offering another way of looking at the world. And people shouldn't be afraid. And I think it really does come from young people, showing young people that life is for living. Go out there and do something, change the world. And it's amazing when you see these people like, what's that teenager, this Thornburg, I've forgotten her name now. But going out and doing something and trying to change the world. Yeah. It's important. We need to change things. But on one hand, you're thinking that it's happening. It is happening. There is a more positive force in the world. There are more people meditating. Yeah. There are more people, but then there are less people going to churches. Yeah. So, one demographic is dying off because they're becoming older.
Yeah. And because of the whole balance in the world, there will always be people who don't get it, and there will always be people who get it. It's like, that's why I usually think to myself, these podcasts, it's like, people who are up to change and transformation or mastering life or, understanding what's beyond the three-dimensional world will be able to listen to these podcasts, and the rest will keep on, living their lives according to a book, and we can do nothing about it. No. There's this whole cycle of what you start, like the fear we have, and that's in our chakras and in our energy centers, and that's the fear of not fitting in, because it's like you see all those people living according to a book and they're almost the same, you kind of feel like maybe you need something else, something different, but there is this fear of not fitting in. I think it's the biggest fear of humanity ever. Like the example you gave me, like how you were with your children, and when your son was born, it's like that's not fitting into the and that needs bravery. It's like if you have fear of being left out, and maybe we should just teach our kids, it's okay to be left out because it's outside the box, it's just it's okay, then it's just you're leading your own way, you're just living your own journey and you're living your own life. And the most important thing is we are meant to live our own lives. It's like there is no good, there is no bad. It's just your life is the best life, and you chose that and he chose that. And it's such a strange... That's so hell. It's like I believe, but I'm certain that if people can go ahead and be brave enough to just do their thing, to just live the life they want to live, I think the whole aging process stops. Because we are so much inspired by living the life we want, but it's not like we as the conditioned self, but like the I am, the real me.
The real I.
I'm so inspired. We're all so inspired to live life the way we want it, no matter how it looks like from the outside. I am certain that the whole aging process stops and you have more energy, you have more light in your skin, in your eyes, you start shining. And
well, there's no
that's when you get the secrets,
when you get to the real self, to the spiritual self, there is no time. There is no time or place, or time again is just a conditioning process. And it's kind of like life on earth. But when you come to the spiritual self, there is no sense of time. It's like when you are in a meditation and you come out of the meditation and you think, whoa, I didn't realize that was 15 minutes, say. God, because there is no time in that dimension. In the energy dimension, there's no time.
There's just depth.
You don't... To become old is a very conditioned thought dialogue. It's a dialogue that's very conditioned. And what sits around it is things like comments like, you're too old to do that, or you're not old enough. Those two limiting beliefs are very conditioning, and they're very, very powerful. But if you go into the real I, the real you, the spiritual self, the soul, there is no time. And you lose attachment to that whole dialogue of I can't. There is no can't. There is no stop. There is no start. There just is. It's like the greater plan, sometimes, and we all do it, many of us do it. You don't have to be thinking in a certain way where you go like, God, I never realised that was going to happen. Or, oh, I never saw that happening. Exactly. because there is no time in the real world. We can say things like, right, it's 12:30 now. In an hour, I'm going to catch a bus. Or tomorrow at 9:00, I've got to go here. That's different.
Yeah.
That's a different sense of time to what we're talking about, which is the really deep, because this is a deep conversation, the really deep, this really deep sense of like what you can and can't, the limits, putting limits on your existence. But in the spiritual world, there is no limits. There just is. And that's why, like you said, when you open up yourself to this different way of living, and I say different way of living and being, because that's the way it is. It's just a being. And so when you do that, it's like you have this wonderful different way of, it's not thinking, because thinking is limiting in itself. It's just like, it's like you see this big bright star in front of you and a feeling that anything can happen.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. We're in the cosmos. We're not in some limited space where it's the opposite, where all the walls are around us.
Yeah,
when you're in this, there are no walls. And so, like you say, this is the who am I and how shall I live? That's the answer.
Yeah.
Because the answer is to really let go and to take away these limiting words like I can't, and it's too difficult.
I shouldn't.
Oh, what if? Or I'm not really sure. Get those out of the vocabulary. Take those out now and disintegrate them.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'll tell you something.
Shouldn'ts, I can't,
Yeah, I don't
what
use.
Ifs, just let them all go.
And because all those words have a very negative vibration. And if you're listening to this and you think that's an absolute piece of nonsense, Mickey, I will give you an example of how that works. I'm from Glasgow, and as many people probably know, the Glasgow dialogue includes a lot of swearing, meaning the F word. F-U-C-K this, F-U-C-K that, F-U-C-K-U. Up until last August, I used to say that a lot. And I decided this part of my journey that I was going to stop swearing. I wasn't going to say F-U-C-K. I wasn't going to say any rude words anymore. And when I told this to some of my best friends, they just thought that was hilarious. They thought that was absolutely hilarious. And I went into a pact with a friend of mine, and he said, you know what, Mickey? I'm going to do this as well, because you're right. It's bad. It's not good. It's a very negative vibration. And each day, at the end of the day, I would check in with him and say, guess what? Only once it happened today. I said F-U-C-K because something happened, and I went, oh, and it took many months for my friends to and one of my best friends said to me after a couple of months, he said, you know what? I've just noticed that you don't swear anymore. And I was like, yes, yes. And once I was in the car with this friend of mine that we were doing it together. I hadn't seen him for ages or something, and I was driving somewhere. And something happened, and I went, oh, France! And he went, wow, you've done it. You've done it. You've actually done it. Whereas before I would say F-U-C-K. But the point of that, why I'm sharing this, is because just doing that helped me relax. Yeah. Because I wasn't that word swearing, and I'm not one of those people, like I'm really anti-swearing.
You know what? It's not even the word. It's like what you have been attaching.
It's what sits around it.
Yeah, it's not stress and the.
It's like there's nothing saying energy. Like I went for a shit in the toilet. Yeah? That's different to saying oh shit.
Yeah.
It's two different things. It's not the word. It's what
the energy around it.
Exactly. It's the energy around it, and that's why I was using that as an example. What we were saying before about I can't, and it's difficult. It's the same thing, just like F-U-C-K. That word has the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like taking a drug or
It is.
drinking alcohol
Like,
every day.
yeah.
It's kind of like
Process.
a
It's just
habitual
it's in your system all
like
the time.
Some kind of an energy.
You become attached to it, and so you think that when you're saying it, you're reaffirming to yourself that it is difficult. You're reaffirming to yourself that I can't do it. Like during the last one of the last lockdowns, I said I stopped using BORED because I thought that's not a good word.
Okay.
And when I was on the phone to people, I said I'm not going to say the B word because that will create a dialogue of a very in a negative way. So if we don't say the B word, we're going to have to talk about something else.
Yeah, interesting.
Do you see what I mean?
I don't use that word.
Yeah, it's not a good word.
I haven't used that word, not ever, but for a long time.
And it's a good little practice. I love, like, because I'm quite military. I like those sort of things, like challenging myself to like not swear. But no, I don't swear.
Yeah, sure.
No, I don't.
So
I don't use that now.
You took a step and you challenged yourself.
Listen, I wouldn't say I was a relaxed person.
Conditioning.
But it's an example of words and how these little tiny...
And the thing is, what I'm going to tell to people who are listening to you, Mickey, because it's kind of like we're talking about all these experiences and challenges, and we're just talking about them as if it was very easy.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the reason you were able to do that is because you're already meditating and doing yoga and breathing. It's like I think we need to emphasize that, because if it's someone else who is not meditating or doing yoga or pranic work or breathing, it's much more harder because it's kind of like, I mean, breath work is one of the most powerful tools I ever met in the past 25 years,
absolutely.
like breath work and meditation, to connect with our real power. So I think, I'm sure there are a lot of people who want to tap into more willpower, you know. If you're someone listening to us today, and if you are having a hard time to connect with your willpower, just try meditation and try breath work. It's like, because we have that willpower. It's like it's like if you see someone like an Olympic champion, you have the exact same willpower. Like you have the same exact discipline, and you have it all. But the reason he experiences more of it is because he's much more connected to that. It's like we have that willpower. We can all discipline ourselves, but it's through meditation and breath work, like spiritual. I mean, that's the reason you could do it. It's like, I want to emphasize it because that's the main thing.
Absolutely.
That you could do that.
It's a starting point. It's a starting point.
I mean, that's like what you're saying. That's one of the biggest reasons why we have Breath Hub. Why we built Breath Hub, because it's like people need that willpower. If you have addictions, if you're face to face with challenges, if you want to change your life but can't, if you need that willpower, meditating every day, doing breath work every day, taking just 5 to 10 minutes to just stop and breathe and connect with self will help you to make
absolutely
it.
Because I think the thing about breath work is that when you begin even a very, very, very simple breathing technique, even just right now when you're listening to us talking, you are breathing right now. But what the thing about breath work does is it really connects you to your energetic self, because we're all aware and we all know that if you were to stop breathing, you would die. The body would stop and you would die. So it's clear then, and there's no real argument, that it's the fundamental breath of life. It's the energy that keeps this physical body going and walking around and doing this and doing that and doing the next thing and breathing. So it's kind of like this easy win of a door to open, to start to think about the energetic world, and you connect with it in a very easy, I mean, I'm saying easy, but in a very simple way, because just by inhaling, like, really deeply and more powerfully, and then exhaling. I can already, just by doing that now, feel the energy of what I've just done.
Yeah,
And
especially when you're
and
drained.
then that can start to make me think, hang on. When you think about, so if you're listening to this now and you just do that simple thing that I've just done, you can start to see, oh, now I know what they're talking about. Now I know that it isn't all just some idea that we've thought of. It's the basics of life. It's a way down at the Adam and the Eve and the first apple, the breath of life. And I just really do encourage anyone who's listening to this to just think about it in a very, it's all steps towards the goal of opening up your world into another experience and being able to, if you have got challenges sitting around you at the moment, whatever those are, a way of just stepping through them and understanding that that's all they are. They're just challenges, and they can, as they come, they can go.
You can breathe into them. You can literally breathe into and through them. That's the main thing.
You really can.
Thank you, Mickey.
Thank you, everyone.
Very nice. I think we did some deep, huh?
Some good patter.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
No chit chat. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you, everyone.
Go ahead and start practicing breathwork right now. Just go ahead, download Breath Up, try it for free for a week. I'm sure you're going to like it, and you won't be able to subscribe. You won't be able to cancel your subscription. No. See you in the next episode. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Bye.